Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Do you know what haunts a person the most? It's not the things they never heard, it's the silence they never saw coming. They thought you'd always be there. They believed that no matter how many times they pushed you away, you'd fight harder to prove your worth. They expected your love to be a guarantee, something they could lose, walk away from, and still find waiting for them when they decided to return. They walked away thinking you'd chase them, thinking you'd beg, thinking you'd break first. But what they never prepared for was your silence. Silence is the one thing they can't control. When you stop explaining, stop fighting, stop proving yourself, you take away their power without even lifting a finger. They thought you'd be angry, that you'd hurt, that you'd send long messages full of explanations about how much they hurt you. But silence leaves them with the one thing they fear the most, themselves. At first they feel relief. They tell themselves you're just giving them space. Any moment now, they think, you'll come crawling back with one more apology, one more chance. But they don't realize that your silence isn't a game. It's a decision. The moment you chose silence over explanation was the moment their ego started to crumble. Silence doesn't feed their ego, it starves it. It forces them to face the truth they've been running from all along. The truth that maybe you weren't the weak one. Maybe they were the ones being tolerated. Maybe they were the ones who lost someone who would have loved them forever. They thought they broke you by leaving, but your silence is breaking them in ways they'll never admit. Silence creates doubt, and doubt is the slowest, most painful poison to the human mind. They start checking your social media, rereading old messages, replaying every memory, trying to figure out if they ever really knew you at all. They wanted you to chase them because, as long as you were chasing, they didn't have to feel the weight of what they lost. But the moment you went silent, they realized something they never saw coming. You're not chasing them, you're replacing them. This isn't about playing mind games or getting revenge. It's about finally giving them what they gave you, nothing. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is absolutely nothing at all. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly why your silence is hurting them more than you think, the hidden stages they go through behind closed doors, and how to hold your silence in a way that not only reprograms their mind, but rebuilds your own self-worth in the process. If you've ever questioned whether your silence is making a difference, by the end of this video, you'll understand why it's the most powerful response you can give. Let's get started. Number 1, why silence hurts more than words. Silence is the one language the human mind can't ignore. Words can be debated, twisted, or blocked out. But silence forces a person to sit with themselves. And that's where the real battle begins. When someone expects you to chase them, your silence isn't just confusing, it's painful. Because what they really wanted was to feel important enough to trigger a reaction from you. They expected anger. They expected long explanations. They expected you to fight to prove your worth one last time. But they never expected you to do nothing at all. The power of silence lies in what it doesn't give them. No closure, no comfort, no reassurance that they're still in control. It creates an empty space in their mind that only they can fill. And the human mind is cruel when left alone. In the beginning, they convince themselves you're just playing hard to get. They tell themselves you're waiting by your phone, dying for them to reach out. But as the days turn into weeks, that silence starts whispering darker thoughts into their head. What if you're not playing games? What if you're really done? What if you're moving on without them? That doubt becomes the slow poison they never saw coming. And the worst part, they're doing it to themselves. The ancient Stoics believed that power isn't in what you say, but in what you choose not to say. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Silence is a lesson learned through life's many sufferings. Your silence is teaching them a lesson their ego was never prepared for. That you're no longer suffering for someone who was never willing to suffer for you. Every time they check their phone and find nothing, it hurts. Every time they refresh your social media and find no sad posts, it stings. Every time they try to provoke you with indirect posts and get nothing, it breaks them a little more. Because now the burning question in their mind isn't whether you're hurting, it's whether you ever really needed them at all. What makes silence more powerful than words is that it forces them to create their own version of the story, and the mind always imagines the worst. Maybe you're healing, maybe you're happy, maybe you're with someone better. The truth doesn't even matter. What matters is that they're realizing the person they thought would always be there isn't waiting anymore. They thought they broke you, but your silence is proving they only broke the version of you that tolerated being disrespected. The greatest power in silence is that it shifts the entire dynamic without a single word. You're no longer the one chasing, you're the one being chased, without lifting a single finger. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments right now. My silence is my power. Because when you finally learn to walk away without a fight, that's the day they realize they lost someone they never deserved. Number 2, the hidden stages they go through. Your silence isn't just something they notice, it's something they feel. What most people don't realize is that silence doesn't hit them all at once. It breaks them down slowly, stage by stage, in ways they'll never admit out loud. The first stage is relief. In the beginning, they convince themselves that you're just giving them space. They think it's a temporary mind game to get their attention. Their ego whispers, they'll be back. They always come back. They feel a sense of control in your silence, believing it's just a matter of time before you reach out with one more apology, one more chance. But what they don't realize is that your silence isn't a pause. It's the final answer to a question they've been testing for far too long. Then comes curiosity. Days pass, then weeks, and the message they were so sure they'd get never arrives. That's when the checking starts. They scroll through your social media in secret, looking for any sign that you're still hurting. Maybe a sad quote, maybe a breakup song, maybe something indirect to show them you're still waiting in the shadows. But the most painful thing they can ever see is nothing at all. No sad posts, no indirect messages, nothing. And that silence eats at them in ways they can't explain. The human mind hates the unknown. When someone can't figure out what you're thinking, their imagination will always assume the worst. That's when frustration kicks in. They might start testing you, liking old pictures, posting things they know will trigger you, or showing off their life to make you feel like they're better off without you. But when you stay silent, when you don't fall for the bait, it drives them insane. Because now, for the first time, they're the one feeling powerless. The next stage is fear. Fear that you're not playing games. Fear that you're really moving on. Fear that someone else is replacing everything they took for granted. And the truth is, the more time passes without a response, the more their mind starts creating stories that hurt them more than any truth ever could. They thought your silence meant you were weak, but now that same silence is making them question if they were the weak one all along. Because why would someone who truly loved them let them go so easily? And that's when the final stage hits. Regret. Every memory they took for granted starts replaying in their mind like a movie they can't turn off. Every time you forgave them, every time you fought for them, every time you cried behind closed doors trying to fix what they broke, those moments hit harder when you're no longer there to remind them. They'll never tell anyone how much your silence is breaking them. Their pride won't allow it. They'll try to act unbothered on the outside while breaking into 1,000 pieces on the inside. But the longer your silence holds, the heavier that regret becomes, until eventually they break. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "If you wish to be strong, learn to enjoy being misunderstood." That's exactly what your silence is doing. Letting them misunderstand your strength while you quietly rebuild yourself behind closed doors. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments right now. I'm choosing silence because I'm choosing myself. Remember, the person who stays silent holds all the power. Number 3, how your silence is reprogramming their mind. Your silence isn't just hurting them, it's reprogramming their entire perception of you. When someone walks away, they expect your pain to revolve around them. They expect proof that they mattered. What they never expect is for you to disappear without a fight. The moment you go silent, the story they've been telling themselves about who you are starts to fall apart. Every second that passes without a message forces their mind to rewrite the version of you they thought they knew. At first, they saw you as someone who would always wait, someone they could lose without ever really losing. But silence strips away that false power. Every time they check their phone and find nothing, their mind starts filling in the blanks. Maybe you weren't as weak as they made you feel. Maybe you were never chasing them. You were just choosing them. And now that you're gone, they're starting to question if they ever really had you at all. The human mind can't stand unanswered questions. Did you ever really need them? Were they special, or were they just another chapter in your life? The more silence you give, the louder those questions become. And what breaks them the most isn't the silence itself. It's the fact that they'll never know the answer. That doubt starts rewiring their entire perception of who they thought they were to you. They used to believe they were the prize. Now your silence is making them wonder if they were just being tolerated. What they don't realize is that your silence isn't punishment. It's a reflection. You're not trying to hurt them. You're simply showing them how life feels without your energy feeding their ego. And the longer your silence holds, the more valuable your absence becomes. Every time they replay old conversations or scroll through your pictures, they're slowly convincing themselves they lost something they'll never find again. The philosopher Seneca once said, "The greatest revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Your silence is proving that you're no longer the person they could manipulate. You're no longer the person who needed closure, explanations, or validation. You're becoming the person they always feared you could be. Someone who can walk away without looking back. What makes silence so powerful is that it leaves them trapped inside their own mind. They can't argue with silence. They can't block it out. They can't manipulate it. Every second your silence holds, it's slowly reprogramming their mind to see you as the one who always had the power. They were just too blinded by their own ego to realize it. By the time they finally break and reach out, you'll already be a version of yourself they'll never have access to again. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments right now. My silence is teaching them what my presence never could. Number 4, how to keep your silence powerful. The hardest part about silence isn't beginning it. It's maintaining it when your heart is screaming to explain. Our minds crave closure and our egos crave validation. But the moment you break that silence to prove a point, you hand your power right back to the one who made you feel powerless. The secret to powerful silence is realizing it's not just about what you withhold, it's about who you're becoming in the process. While you're saying nothing, you're using that silence to rebuild. This is your time to reconstruct everything they tried to shatter. Start working out, journal your thoughts, and rediscover the version of you that existed long before anyone made you feel inadequate. Every morning you choose discipline over despair. Every moment you heal, you're silently saying, "I'm not coming back." Your healing shows that their absence is not a weakness, but rather your greatest opportunity. Don't just vanish, transform. The most potent silence is the one that makes them question whether they ever truly knew you. Let your glow shine without a single word. Instead of blocking or unfollowing them, let them observe from afar as you evolve into someone they never imagined you could be. As the Stoic philosopher Zeno of Citium once remarked, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, hence we should listen more than we speak." Your silence is delivering a lesson far louder than any words could. You no longer seek validation from someone who never recognized your true worth. Every second you remain silent reprograms their mind to see that you were always the prize. Remember, silence loses its power when used solely to punish, but when it fuels your own growth, it becomes an undeniable force. They won't regret losing you because you're silent. They'll regret losing you because the person you're becoming will never glance back. This isn't about making them miss you. It's about becoming so whole that their regret is utterly irrelevant. Number 5. When will they break? They'll break the moment they realize you're not waiting for them anymore. It isn't when they notice your silence. It's when they understand that your silence is a deliberate choice, not a reaction. This change won't happen in a week or a month. It will occur when the person who once begged, cried, and fought for their attention becomes nothing more than a fading memory. At first, they might convince themselves that you're just playing games or punishing them with silence. But silence doesn't shatter hearts instantly. It erodes them gradually. When reality begins to replace their inflated assumptions, they'll find themselves scrolling through your old messages at odd hours, desperate to find the person who once fought to be heard. They'll replay every conversation where you pleaded for them to stay, wondering how someone who once gave endless chances could suddenly offer none. They'll break when they understand you're not angry or bitter, not blocking them to prove a point, nor posting tearful quotes for attention. You're simply gone. Nothing haunts the human mind more than realizing someone who once had everything chose to give them nothing. For some, that break may come in weeks. For others, in months. The longer it takes, the heavier the regret becomes. With each delayed response, they convince themselves you're moving on. And when they finally reach out, what will devastate them most is not your silence, but the version of you they'll encounter. The one who no longer needs apologies, closure, or validation. The you they once knew is gone. Your silence didn't just hurt them, it rebuilt you. The most powerful response you can give is nothing at all. Not because you want to hurt them, but because the person they once broke has evolved into someone beyond their reach. As Marcus Aurelius once said, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Your silence isn't revenge, it's evolution. They will shatter when they realize you're not holding back your words. You're holding back your energy and self-worth, which no amount of regret can ever reclaim. Every second you choose silence, you break free from the cycle of proving your worth to someone who never deserved it. Let them wonder, let them regret, and let them feel your absence. If you're choosing your self-worth over chasing after someone who never valued you, drop an affirmation in the comments. I choose myself. And if you're ready to turn that silence into unstoppable power, subscribe, because this is only the beginning of your glow-up journey.